All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the cylinder heads on. Just kind of want to get the top end of this thing put together so that it gets a little easier to manage cleanliness and whatnot. So I got Felpro head gaskets. These have a compressed thickness of 47 thousandths. And why does that matter? Well, the taller the compressed thickness, or thicker the compressed thickness of the head gasket, changes the compression ratio. It changes the relationship between the heads and the intake manifold. And if you get too carried away, you can have some other issues, namely quench and things like that. So you have to be a little careful with this. These are fairly standard. This is a fairly standard thickness, so nothing weird, nothing exotic. You just mount them on the dowel pins, just like that. After you've cleaned the deck with contact cleaner, which is what I like to use, and that gives you a good clean surface to mate your head gasket to. That's that. All right, so again, without sounding like a Summit Racing commercial, I did buy the Summit cast iron cylinder heads versus having my heads rebuilt. The heads that we had for this engine had been rebuilt once before. They're the original 194 intake valve, and with the cam we picked for this engine, we just felt that it would be better served if we put 202 heads on it. And 202 heads are hard to find, or they're getting hard to find. And so by the time you buy them and spend the money on them and then get them rebuilt, you know, you're going to be somewhere around $1,000 or so, maybe a little more, depending upon, you know, how much your cores cost. But around here, cores are not cheap, so we decided to go ahead and buy these Summit heads, and I've used these before with great success on a 72 GMC. Love these heads for the money. Really hard to beat. About $715 or so for a set of them. And like I said, I'm a big fan. They're brand new, no rebuilt parts, and they are just perfect for one of these old engines if you're having trouble finding some decent heads or your heads aren't in great shape. So you do have to clean and prep them a little bit. They are not like run ready. They don't have rocker studs mounted in them, so you know you got to do some assembly work to make them all kosher. Now also keep in mind, this is real important with small block Chevys in particular, I'm using ARP head bolts. They have a taper on them. That's where the shoulder of the bolt goes in, so that it's a nice clean flush sort of setup. These go through the water jacket. So to install them, you have to put a thread sealant on the threads, which is kind of wild because it's more or less like pipe sealant. It will prevent the head bolts from seeping water up into the head, into the combustion chamber, or wrecking your head gasket. So that being said, I'll get these all set up. Again, these also have to have ultra torque lube put onto the shoulder face of the head bolt and the threads to get an accurate torque reading. So keep that in mind. All right, so I've got all the head bolts prepped, thread sealant, and ultra torque on the heads for these ARP fasteners. There's a torque sequence that needs to be used for all cylinder heads, and it doesn't really matter what kind of engine you're working on. And you can look it up and follow it, or you can, you know, do it the way you know most people do it. They will actually go through and start in the middle and work in a triangular pattern and work their way out as they tighten them up. And then that gives them the ability to put them in order so that the clamping force is spread out evenly as you tighten up the bolts. So you don't wind up having a warped head, a warped block, because you can actually influence how the block is shaped and how the bores, cylinder bores, are round. So you have to be careful with that. So it's important not only to torque these to the correct torque specification, which in this case is 70 foot-pounds, but it's also important to make sure that you're doing it in the correct pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and just want to kind of follow along here as we go. I'll get all these started, and then we will snug them up. And then we will do a torque sequence that will do these in 3 steps. So to prevent us from, just mashing these down and not over torquing them in one shot and maybe unduly influencing that, we're going to go ahead and do it in 3 steps. So we'll do it in, let's say we'll do 30 for the first round, 50 for the second round, and 70 for the final round. And that should get us a pretty good sequence for torque. Got a little bit of towel on that thread. I want to make sure you don't have anything on the threads. And it keeps them real clean going in. So first I'm going to just get these to the point where they're not tight, they're just snugged up a bit so they're not loose and that they're all even. And one of the ways you can do that is to use one of these adjustable guns. Now I'm going to get this torque wrench out, set it to 30, and go ahead and torque this to 30. Okay, that's 30. Alright, so I'm going to go 50. $15, $16, 2, 4, 6, 8, 17. So I counted 16, but there's 17 bolts on each side. So we'll count them again. 1, 16. No, just check them all. 10. There's the loose one. 17. Alright, so we're good. So let's double check these then. 1. 17. Okay, now we go to 70. Alright, here we go. 17. 1, 17. Head bolts are tight. Don't forget to unload your torque wrench, or it'll go out of calibration if it's one of these quick stops.